Okay, so Right Wing Watch posted this, and I'm not 100% certain as to why. I haven't watched it yet, but I see a pastor, so I'm assuming that we're going to hear something unhinged and based entirely on the Bible. So let's see what's going on here.
The chief end of every government is to glorify God and to protect its people's God-given right to glorify and enjoy him forever.
Oh, okay. That's not true. Okay, so the end purpose of a government isn't to glorify a god, okay? I don't know why I have to explain that to somebody, ever. I don't know why I would ever need to explain to anyone why that is not the case. But no, the end goal of a government fluctuates based on what that government structure is. So if it is a monarchy, the end result of that government is likely to try to maintain the power of the monarch. Now, there are multiple ways they might maintain power, having a strong military presence, trying to appease the people so that they don't come and chop off their head, French Revolution style. There are many things that a monarch might do to keep their power, but ultimately their goal is to stay in power. If we have a democracy, then the goal of the government is to protect people with the voice of the people. It is an attempt to try to bring more people and more ideas together in an eclectic, diverse society represented by an eclectic, diverse set of people who are advocating on their behalf. The goal of that government, it should be, to try to make sure that its people are taken care of. Now, the goal of the United States government appears to be to get oil, and appears to be to look strong with the military and suck the dicks of bald eagles. But again, the specifics of any particular government, of what that government's job is going to be different. Ultimately, though, I think you could say that a government's job is to stay in power. Any government at all is interested in staying in power. If it's a monarchy, it wants to stay in power. If it's an oligarchy, they want to stay in power. If it's a democracy, then you want to keep that power structure because you believe that it is a bulwark against monarchy and oligarchy. You want to keep stability. That is the point of the government. Not to glorify a god, because we can ask lots of questions like, what god? Like, are we talking about Vishnu? Are we talking about Bahamut from Final Fantasy? Are we talking about Jesus Christ? Are we talking about Jesus Christ as represented in that one anime where he's roommates with Buddha? Like, I don't know.
I'll say it again. The chief end of every government is to glorify God and to protect its people's God-given right to glorify and enjoy him forever.
Again, what about governments that don't do that? Like, I'm sorry, but this feels like you're trying to make a normative statement. But let's assume for a second that what you're saying is right. If the end result of a government was to glorify God, and we were specifically looking at whether that government was doing the things that God wanted done, what is that government actually? Well, you would say that it's a government that is ruled by that religion. And we have a word for a government that is ruled by religion. It's a theocracy. Because ultimately the will of the people don't really matter anymore at that point. It's just whatever the will of your God is. But more specifically, it's not the will of your God, it's what's written in the book that is supposed to communicate the will of your God. And then more specifically than that, it's your interpretation of what is written in that book that is supposed to be the will of your God. Or maybe it's just some random shit that Paul said to the Romans. I don't know. It can be wishy-washy as fuck. One of the most hilarious things you will ever see is watching two Christians debate Christianity against each other and try to use the Bible as a cudgel against each other. And you're going to find that, lo and behold, a book that was largely written by multiple different authors is not going to be consistent with itself. That's what would be expected. And yet, there's this prevailing idea that it is consistent enough to build an entire fucking government on. Jesus, Anselin says slow down and breathe. I should do that. Jet Fatigue says, I do not wish to enjoy God. Thank you.
My aim is twofold. Number one, to confront you with the absolute lordship of Jesus Christ, to awaken holy fear of treason against Christ, and equip legislators to govern as his servants so that your laws and priorities and public witness protect the citizen's right to know and enjoy God.
Okay, so where in there are you protecting people's right to healthcare? Where in there are you protecting people's right to their own personal property? Where in there are you doing literally anything for your people at all? Because I'm going to let you know right now, as a former Christian, there is nothing that can possibly get in the way of your relationship with God from the Christian perspective. Even if you look at the Bible, there are several instances of Christians who, while being persecuted, still glorify their God while in prison. They still glorify their God when they have their backs up to the wall. They are narratively pinned to areas where they cannot move, they cannot speak, they cannot do things. But because the relationship with God from the Christian perspective is supposed to be a personal relationship, as long as you can pray, you have a relationship with God. Nobody can take that away. So the government doesn't need to do anything to provide that in the first place. Now, I would argue that a government should do everything in its power to preserve freedom of religion, but I would also argue that that means you have to preserve freedom from religion. You want everybody to have the freedom to subscribe to their religion, whatever it may be, even if it's none. The idea that it should actually be like the fucking Model Ts with Ford is laughable to me. And if you don't understand that reference, there's a lovely, maybe apocryphal bit of info about the old Model Ts where Henry Ford said, hey, you can get them in any color you want, so long as it's black. You can worship any god you want, so long as it's Yahweh. And again, not specifically Yahweh, but specifically my version of Yahweh that believes the things I think Yahweh believes. Because you can use the Bible to contradict the Bible.
Forever. Second, to call upon the Church of Jesus Christ to declare to and warn their legislators of the sovereign authority of Christ to order his world by his word.
So how is that going to look? Because, okay, so I've done lobbying before, so I know what it looks like to threaten a lawmaker. I've seen that happen. I have tried to talk with a lawmaker while in an elevator with him while he was on his way to another thing. Like, the lobbying thing is something that I have done. I have experience here. So my question is, how the fuck would that look, right? Okay, so let's say I go to the Georgia lobby right now. I'm going to the lobby around in the Capitol building, and my knees are fucking hurting because the entire thing's made of marble, and it sucks to walk in. I promise you, it is a terrible experience, but I'm doing it anyway. I grab my white sheet of paper, and I write down the particular politician I want to talk to because they're in session right now, and I put on there dire warning as the thing that I need to talk to them about. And so that politician has the ability to ignore that. They can just ignore that slip, but let's say that they don't ignore that slip. Let's say that they come out to talk to me. Now, let's say it's Bill Krauser. He was one of the ones I talked to last time. He comes out and says, dire warning, what is this about? And I go, God will smite you if you don't do what he wants. And then he's going to look at me funny and go, he's going to do one of two things. He's either going to look at me funny and go, well, what does God want me to do right now? Because that sounds really weird. Or he's going to go, I'm a Christian, you dumb motherfucker. I'm already doing what God wants me to do. Shut up. In any of those scenarios, like, when you're basically asking your congregation, hey, go lobby at your capital and threaten the lawmakers with the power of God, I think it's going to look laughable no matter how you do it. But also, like, how does that threat actually work? Like, okay, let's say for right now that you do everything God doesn't want. Every single thing, back to back to back. What's going to happen? Because there's nothing that's going to happen. We've tried this experiment 1 billion times. God's not going to fucking smite you. It's just not something he cares to do. And if you have 10 billion of these instances happening all the time, and a couple of people get struck by lightning, well, congratulations, you just had the statistical chance that lightning striking was going to happen in the first place. Why didn't he smite all the other people? Like, how does this threat go through? How does this materialize, my guy?
Government and her magistrates are never neutral. They always orient citizens toward a God. So
again, they don't. I'm sorry, but I don't think that, not only do I think that the government does not orient people to God, but I also don't think it should. And not because I want people to be atheists more. I don't think being an atheist makes you a better person than the next person. I think that people should have that freedom of choice, and that freedom of choice should not be coerced by the government or even suggested by the government.
Will you direct them to the living Christ or to idols, and then face the living judge for your attempted insurrection against his throne?
Oh my God, remember, January 6th wasn't an insurrection, but you're definitely insurrecting against God when you, I don't know, like gay people?
Legislators, hear this warning. God will not be mocked.
Jesus Christ, Lord the Father, whatever you want to be called by, you have a weirdly shaped nose, probably. And I also think that it's funny when you pretend you're real. Ha! There, I did the thing. God will not be mocked, and yet we can just kind of do that, and nothing happens. And even from a Christian perspective, nothing will happen to you when you mock God. Because if you are a John 3:16 Christian, you believe that getting saved is the important thing, your salvation can't be taken away from you. Now, this may be a thing that I learned from being part of the IFB. Not me, part of the IFB, but I grew up in an IFB church because that church was the church of my school, Pensacola Christian Academy. I grew up in that environment, and the once saved, always saved was a very, very long-running thing that was thrown at us all the time. You are saved by Christ. You're saved forever at that point. And that's from a Christian perspective. And there's no way to evaluate which one of these is real. So I'm going to go with the one I grew up with. You could make fun of God all you want, but you had him absolve you of your sins once, so you're going to go to heaven. That's just a thing that's going to happen. Old Gus says the existence of God is irrelevant to our place in the universe, meaning is what we create. Yeah, that's fair. I believe that, but I'm also perfectly willing to just speak from the perspective of a former Christian and say that even per the Bible, you can just mock God and still be saved. And like, the worst that's going to happen is when you get to heaven, he's going to give you a stern look before you go to your billionth mansion. Like, I'm sorry, but this is just threatening people for no reason.
You are not sovereign. You will give an account before King Jesus. If you belittle Christ in the halls of power and blaspheme him by not ascribing to him glory and authority over the governments that rest upon his shoulders.
Okay, I see what's happening. If every politician does not do exactly what the Bible says and says that it's because of the glory of God, then he's not going to be very happy. So I guess he wants gay people to burn in hell or something. Like, I don't know. Because at that point, anything that contradicts whatever you think God's law is that a politician does is now suddenly the worst thing in the world. But again, whatever God's law is something that a lot of people are going to interpret differently. So how the fuck do they follow it in the first place?
The scepter you grasp will become the rod that breaks you.
That sounds unreasonably kinky.
Kiss the sun or face the beating. You must choose your allegiance.
Okay, well, I choose not to ally myself with a guy who uses a carrot and stick that way. There we go. I've chosen my allegiance, I guess. So who is this guy? Well, this is Dusty Deevers, for those who might not know who that is. And he happens to be a member of the Oklahoma Senate. This isn't just a random fucking pastor saying that things are bad in the government and you should go usurp it. This is a guy who right now has power in the United States government. That right there. I'm sorry, but if you're in Oklahoma, maybe it's a good idea to start talking with your local DSA and see if you can unseat this guy. Because when a guy is threatening everybody with his just imaginary deity and saying that that guy is going to cudgel them to death because you didn't do whatever arbitrary thing that he wanted you to do last Tuesday, I feel like that is a good enough reason for you not to be a representative of people in the United States. You are a representative of the US, right? Okay. So in your constituency, you have atheists, agnostics, Muslims, Christians, you have Hindus, you have, even within Christians, you have Catholics and you have Mormons and Methodists and all kinds of different denominations. You have a ton of different people of varying religions who are in your constituency. And when you are saying that you want to use God as this cudgel to harm whatever the fuck, you are not representing that constituency very well. In fact, actually, you're doing such a laughably bad job at it that not only should we point at you and laugh, we should also make sure that you lose your seat in government. And, well, again, we have tools for that. In the description, there's a thing to the local DSA. Use it. That could help a lot. Vic Vivian says, I want to puke knowing that someone like that is in government power. But the thing is, it's not just him. There's a lot of people like him in government power. There's a lot of people like him in government power. I want to do the whole, like, Seven Mountains mandate thing, but there's a higher amount of Christians than non-Christians in the United States. So, like, Seven Mountains mandate or not, this guy was gonna be where he was. Old Gus says, naughty senator. Oh, you gonna filibuster me? Is that what you're gonna do with your mouth, big guy? Jesus Christ. He just announced recently that he is running for re-election.
I promise to fight for our rural Oklahoma values. I promise to stand against corruption, the backroom deals, and the swamp politics that put special interest above the people, and I've kept that promise. I authored legislation to abolish abortion in Oklahoma. I went on offense to protect your Second Amendment rights.
So he wanted to strip away women's rights, but he really likes guns. Sounds like a standard conservative. I don't know why I'd vote for you.
I worked to make sure that COVID mandates and lockdowns never happen again. I championed legislation to repeal and cut income and property taxes.
So, cutting property taxes, I can understand wanting to do that, but property taxes fund schools. So if you're cutting property taxes, you're defunding those schools. I mean, I get it. You're a Republican, so you definitely want to make sure that your constituents are not very well educated. I understand that. And also, when you cut every other tax as well, like, that's the money that should be going into infrastructure. I feel like in the United States, we have super low taxes compared to other countries because we just don't do shit for our citizens like we should. But we already have fairly low taxes in the United States compared to, say, Canada or Denmark or anywhere else that actually has, like, functioning healthcare. Dorita says Georgia is trying to do that. Both candidates are like, hell yeah, I'll do it better than the other. Negazer says they're ranked 48th in education, so yes, he's going to cut the taxes. There you go. Anselm says, as much as I hate taxes, I like roads and firefighters and teachers. So the thing is, I don't hate taxes. I think taxes are perfectly fine. I just wish that we had a better system for doing them. I wish that we had a method to allow 1099 people to have their taxes taken out of their 1099s. The way that W-2 taxes are taken out, because they don't function that fucking differently from one another, so it should be possible. I want that to be the case. If I were to introduce any kind of tax reform, that would be one of the first things that I would do, because it would personally benefit me having more money taken out of my thing automatically, so that I can have the exact same tax writing experience at the end of the year as every other fucking W-2 employee. Axel says you put money in the money hat, and the money hat money goes to taking care of you and everybody else. Dorito says, would also be nice to get rid of HR block and shit, where the government does taxes at the end of the year automatically. Yeah, the next thing that wouldn't be, like, personally benefiting me would be making sure that, like, Intuit and H&R Block and all those companies just fucking dissolve. Because the only thing that makes taxes suck in America, I mean, there's many things, but one of the main things that make them suck in America is those tax lobby groups. So, somebody says, I missed out on my state tax return because I didn't have a government ID for Ohio. That sucks. Kinma says, TurboTax pissed me off requiring Windows 11. What the fuck did TurboTax possibly have on their website that required Windows 11? That's stupid as hell. Jasta says, I'm happy to pay my local state taxes, but I wish I didn't have to fund warmonger sex pests that lead at the federal level. Yeah, I wish that my money wasn't going into his salary. I know that it's a drop in the hat compared to the actual, like, money that Trump makes, but I don't like the politicians that represent a lot of us, and I don't want cents of my dollars going to them. Just like I would not want to tithe the Catholic Church when it shuffles around fucking pedophile priests to Chile, I don't want to do the same thing for the United States Senate and Congress. But I don't get a choice in that matter. Dirty Dave says, unrelated, I really love Mario, but his brother is better. Man, there was a sidebar. There was a video that I saw, it might have been April Fool's, but where the voice actor for Luigi in the Mario movie was asked, like, what his favorite Luigi of all time is, and he said Luigi Mangione. I don't know if that was a real clip or if it was, like, some weird AI-generated bullshit that was floating around, but I saw that and laughed. See here. Drea says, I don't believe it was fake. Base Charlie Day. Grand Chicken Lord says, modern republicanism seems like it is also predicated on not actually caring about the future of current children. It grew out of a general dislike of government intervention in the economy, but I think it's gone further than that. Now they actively want to sabotage the future. Too many get a few bucks. So there's a perspective that I want to throw that I find interesting. So there is a friend of the family who really hates the government being involved in healthcare, right? And I've tried to explain to him, like, hey, if it weren't for the ACA, me and Saki would not have healthcare and therefore would be kind of screwed. And he tried to say, well, how would you be screwed? And I don't think he understands that I don't make the kind of money he makes. I don't think he understands that I'm dating a woman who needs to have certain things covered medically in order to survive. I don't know if any of that registers to him at all. But what I should do in situations like that is ask, okay, well, what specific government intervention has caused the price to go up for you? And can you point to how that happened and why that happened? Just as I'm unable to go, but a DSA endorsed candidate for my House seat launches on Saturday. I'm 100% going to vote for her and hopefully phone bank in the near future. Nice. Anyway, no, this is Dustin. He's running again, and you should probably yank him out of his fucking office seat. Everybody who's in the DSA over there. Probably a great idea. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitt, you know I'm not saying that last part, Sylvie Snow, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.